What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to discuss everything the new Arkham game needs to learn from Batman Arkham Origins. Now, we talked about 5 things we've wanted in this game. We talked about 5 things we don't want in this game. And I do want to make more videos along those kind of lines, and that's what this one is trying to be. I was trying to look at it and say, well, could I do a, 5 things that the game did good, 5 things it did bad, or 5 things that it could take from it good, 5 things, things like that. I thought this was like a catchier title. I thought I could kind of sum it up. When you look at Arkham Origins to see, what did that game do well and what did that game not do well? What are the things that, they need to learn from? And I do think there's a lot to learn from Asylum City and Night, especially Night, and maybe I can make that video as well. So if you guys like this video does good. If you guys are liking it, and commenting and all that kind of stuff, which you always do, and I greatly appreciate it, but do it extra for this, because I do kind of want to talk about that. What could they learn from a game like Arkham Knight? Even though it's not theirs, obviously there were a lot of mistakes made. There were some positive things there, but they kind of get overlooked by all the negative, and Arkham Origins kind of always gets overlooked by the fact that it's that kind of like stepchild of Batman, that you don't really take it as serious. You don't really look at it with like a fine scope and you say, okay, well, what were the actual things though? What did this game really do that made it a very, very good game in a lot of respects? And then also, what was kind of about it? What was that kind of feel? What made it be looked at as like, this is just not to the quality of the Arkham games, of what we knew from them up to that point, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and then maybe even Arkham Knight. So I do want to talk about that right now in this video. Quick plug, just really fast, Discord server. The link is in the description below. We talk about basically all things there. There's communities for different, for all the different topics we do, Arkham, Star Wars, things like that. So loads of different things to talk about if you guys are interested. The community is growing at a very, very nice pace. I'm very, very happy with it, and there's a lot of awesome people over there. So if you guys are interested, make sure you join it. Now, okay, when it comes to Arkham Origins, here's just a couple things. I'm going to go over kind of one at a time. I don't even have a list. I'm going off just of my mind here. The number one thing that obviously the game needs to avoid is doing what Arkham Origins did with the story, is making it that very, very easy, or even like kind of the lying aspect that these games have developed over the last little while. So I guess what I would say for the first one is it needs to avoid lying to us, and it needs to avoid, I guess, having Joker as the main villain. Now, that is also one of the things we said this game just flat out cannot have, but that's something you need to learn from, and that's something, again, Arkham Origins did in a different way, I would say, than any of the other Arkham games, where I guess up until that point, we kind of hadn't been lied to all that much from these Arkham games in general, right? We were going into that thinking Black Mask was the main threat, and then lo and behold, it was actually Joker. And again, like, that was the first time they lied to us with Arkham Knight as well, and I guess they lied to us like right after Arkham City, if you want to consider that, but that was Rocksteady, okay? So Warner Bros., when it comes to their next game, the villain choices are very important. We can talk about villain choices in different videos. I've seen people throw out lists of like, hey, these are the villains I'd want in the game, and there are very, very good lists out there. That's something they need to be aware of, but they cannot make the same mistake that they did in Arkham Origins. Don't build up one villain to then make it something else, and that is a risk, especially when we consider the rumors of like the Court of Owls and stuff. You don't want to make that same mistake twice. You don't want the Court of Owls to be hyped up and be talked, and everybody's saying like, beware the Court of Owls, like all this stuff. You don't want that to be your main thing, to then have Joker or somebody take over halfway through, and then they're the main villains, and the Court of Owls gets kind of pushed away. You do not want that to be, you don't want that to happen again. Now, the next thing, and let's go on a positive note here, is they need to learn, or like the thing that Arkham Origins did well that they need to learn from is the boss battles. Boss battles in Arkham Origins is commonly looked at as the way to do it. Now, were there mistakes made in it in general? Yeah. Were there improvements are there improvements in general that definitely need to be made? Yeah. I do like the boss fights in Arkham Origins, but I'm not like blown. I'm truly not. And maybe this is where we differ. I'm not like blown away by the boss fights. I think a lot of people really, really love the boss fights. I thought they were good. I thought they were decent. I thought they were above average. They weren't like amazing. And boss fights truly are some of the hardest things to pull off I truly believe this. Some of the hardest things to pull off in a game. And it really also depends on the kind of game. And Batman, the Arkham games in general, are stuck with the just in what kind of world they're building and just the kind of property themselves, where it's like, yeah, you kind of expect bosses to be in it, don't you? Because like there's so many villains, and you would eventually, I guess, expect to face them in like a one-on-one battle. And I don't know if the games are really built in the greatest way to allow that to happen, especially not the Arkham games that Rocksteady made. Now, again, Origins, the way they did the boss fights was just different. It kind of felt like a different game, to be honest with you, in those sections. So maybe that's the reasoning why it felt so different. And that actually is kind of good. It's good and bad. You want to feel, in a way, comfortable, and you want the game to kind of feel like it's one kind of whole thing, right, from beginning to end. And so by that measure, by that standard, not necessarily you don't want the boss fights to just feel like it's a completely different game. At the on the same token as that, it's tough because, again, Arkham is, or Batman is, a franchise where you expect to go one-on-one with Deathstroke, with just all, even, I mean, yeah, Rocksteady tried it too, with Joker, with the Arkham Knight, with stuff like that. In Arkham City, they try to do it with every villain, right? Hugo Strange, in a way, Mr. Freeze, they did that boss fight, which I actually thought was kind of cool. So, it's tough. It's really, really tough, but that's something you need to learn from. So I do think Arkham Origins did have probably overall the best boss battles to them, and when it comes to this new game, I've seen a lot of people say, you need to continue that. You need to have those kind of boss battles. But I'll throw in, you also need to have it feel a little bit more fluid. And that kind of goes, again, with the negative. What did it do wrong that this one needs to fix? This one's tough because it's perception. The perception that it's not good enough. The perception that this isn't really an Arkham game. That's something that they need to learn from Arkham Origins and somehow fix with this game. Now, I'll tell you the first thing working for them, though, and this is honestly, I haven't really talked about this that much because I don't really like that narrative, and even though it's totally true. When Arkham Origins came out, immediately it was looked at as this isn't to the quality of Asylum and City. It's nowhere near, and that was before Night, and which I think a lot of people at this point will either say Night or Origins is the worst one, and it'll kind of go back and forth. Back then, though, we got two basic masterpieces. My favorite in Arkham Asylum, and then I think what is the best game in general in the entire franchise, and also I think the best superhero game ever made in Arkham City. Okay, so those are the two games that were leading before Arkham Origins, so it came into a tough spot. But that was the perception right away, is this isn't to the quality. Like, this is, and I think, again, that is just perception that Arkham Origins kind of was that filler of like, hey, we need an Arkham game because we can't have it go 4 years. 2009, 2011, we got to have something in 13, right? Because Arkham Knight's going to be in 15. So we need something in between. Oh, we own this other studio. Hey, you guys make another game. It can be a prequel, but make a game to kind of fill it in. And I think it was like PR talk, company talk, and it hurt the game. It 100% hurt the game. And I think to this day, it still hurts it in terms of when you talk about it. And I do think people kind of give it a bad reputation because of that, just for the very fact that it wasn't Rocksteady when, yeah, I mean, it did do things a little not as good, and it did do things better. There were pros and cons to it. But I do think that's a perception thing that maybe with the boss fights, maybe with just how the general game, I mean, obviously the look, obviously the voice cast is another one that's really hard to bounce back from because they made the choice. It's an origin story. It's a prequel story. It's going to be completely different voice actors. We're not doing Kevin Conroy. We're not doing Mark Hamill. We're doing Roger Craig Smith, who I think did a decent job. And we're having Troy Baker, who I think also did a decent job. Neither of which I think did a fantastic or like a superb job, but they didn't do bad. But things like that, very, very tough. But again, going back, I know I said, like, I'm going to help them out here. Here's what helps them out. It's the only game out. It's the only game out there right now, and that is what's going to help them. That's it. I could end the video right there. But in all reality, this is a game that, at this point in 2019, we know that Arkham is done from Rocksteady. We know that Rocksteady, whether it's Justice League, whether it's Suicide Squad, whatever, they're done with the sole, the main focus being on Batman in an Arkham game. I still think Batman will be in their games in the future, but it's not going to just be Batman. So because of that, it doesn't have anything really to compare itself to. I guess people will compare it to Night, considering it comes after it in terms of like when the game releases to us. It'll kind of be fair to do that. It'll also kind of not be fair, and I'm sure those are discussions that we'll be having as we get closer and when the game actually comes out. But what will help them just in general is the fact that this is it. It's just this game. You can't say, well, we know, and I mean, I guess you could say, well, we know Rocksteady could have a game that could beat it like a year later, or maybe Magic Awakened, Harry Potter Magic Awakened, maybe that'll be a better game. But different genres, those are going to be very, very different games. It's not like we're waiting another couple years and then we know Rocksteady is also going to have an Arkham game that we just assume will be better, okay? It's not that anymore, and I do honestly feel like that's going to help this game because I think no matter what, yeah, you have to improve the boss battles. You have to there's a lot of things they have to do in this game. You have to actually tell a very, very solid story. And everything that we said, 5 things we want in the game, 5 things we don't. And that could be improved, or that can be like expanded to 10 or 15 things each way, okay? 100%. Those are all things that need to be in this game. But I think one of the biggest things, if not the biggest, is it needs to get away from the perception, or they can't let it get to them, or us as a community has to stop referring to it as like that side thing, that it's not as important, or it shouldn't be as respected as much as the Rocksteady games. I think that's like the biggest barrier that they need to get over, and I don't think they've done it yet. I still think they're in it. I hope that when the game actually gets announced, we can start to move on from it. But that is one of the main things that they need to learn from the last game. Basically, kind of just accept the game that you are and make it the best possible. So, guys, that's 3 things. I'm sure there's a lot more. And again, I don't want to repeat. That's why there's only a couple things in this video. I don't want to repeat the same things I said because a lot of things of the 5 things it needs, the 5 things it doesn't need. We've already made those videos, and those can all be applied to things that they did or didn't do in Arkham Origins. So if you haven't checked out those videos, definitely do. They are very well received from our community. We got a lot of awesome suggestions in both of things that people want and don't want. But go check that out as well. And let me know again in the comments below, what are some things that you think this game needs to learn from Arkham Origins? What are the good things? What are the bad things? What needs to kind of change in this new game to get over what happened with Arkham Origins? Let me know. Now, this is day 1 of 3 of Batman videos. We're going to be having 3 days in a row of stuff. I believe tomorrow is going to be the Arkham City review, and then Tuesday I'm going to be talking again about kind of a speculation about the game. So I kind of want to go in that kind of style, have some different videos every so often to kind of always mix up what we're talking about with this game. But let me know if this is the stuff that you guys want me to make, and I will, of course, continue to make these kind of videos as well as we now go through November, okay? So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all on the next video.